Welcome back. Now, if you have just joined us, you're watching Safiya Breakfast Show. The disagreement between the Chairman Senate Committee on Navy, Senator Misau, and the police is taking another dimension. Now, with the police declaring him wanted for forgery and absconding since 2010, Senator Misau had last Friday accused the Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, of not accounting for 10 billion naira police internally generated revenue, which he added amount to 20 billion naira annually. The question now, if the police, who is paid with taxpayers' money and is saddled with the responsibility of protecting lives and property, is in a loggerhead with a lawmaker, what does this mean to security and the fight against corruption? To discuss this development, we have in the studio Agoso Bameyi, who is a public affairs commentator. Very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Jacobs.
Morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Yetunde.
Of course, it's a trending issue in Nigeria, talking about the saga between the lawmaker and the Nigerian police, because it's a case against Nigerian police and lawmaker. But looking at it from the critical point of view, where does this saga place the image of Nigeria political system as well as police force?
Well, let me say that what is happening between Haman Isa and Isa Misau and the IG of police Ibrahim Idris Potom is symptomatic of the problems we have in Nigeria. It's not new. It's just that it's coming to the surface. All these things are things that people know. I've had extensive discussions with ordinary police people in the street, and it will interest you to hear what they're saying. Perhaps you would send out a reporter to talk with police people, ordinary police people. They might not agree to talk on camera.
They wouldn't want to talk.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to talk on camera. But like I said, it's symptomatic of what is happening in Nigeria. There's a lot of mess. People using their position, to enrich themselves illegally. And so you have this back and forth between the Senate chairman for the Navy and the Inspector General of Police and the police institution. And I followed this back and forth interestingly, closely, because it's a very interesting story. And the truth of the matter is both of them are speaking from both sides of their mouth. There's no straightforwardness on both sides, on both counts. And I guess we'll look at it today. But as far as where it places our image, it's not good. It's not a good thing. This sort of thing shouldn't be happening in a civilized community as ours. Again, it explains why we are as underdeveloped as we are in the midst of such huge resources. You have individuals who come into positions and use those positions to enrich themselves instead of working for the good of the country. These monies that we're talking about are resources that are meant for the development of the country.
That's right.
And once you take it away, it means it's not available to develop the country. And it's like you have a family of 10, and you have a pool where you collect, let's say, oranges, for instance, that it's meant for the good of the family, and you are asked to be in charge of those oranges or food item for the family. And instead of multiplying it and using it very well to supply the needs of the family, you personalize it. You're taking from it instead of adding. And if everybody keeps taking and taking and taking, we will get to a point where there's nothing to take anymore and the family suffers. I think we're at that point. We're at that point where, as a result of so much taking over the years, we do not have enough now to take care of our population. And the family has grown big. We're 180 million, 200 million people. The resources are just not there because in the past, people who are charged with the responsibility of leading us, who should have been visionary enough to multiply the resources going into the future to be able to take care of the population, have not done that. They've rather taken care of themselves, And so we're at a situation where we're all suffering now. The recession we're going through is a result of these mistakes over the years.
Now, aside taking all the monies and not accounting for it and all that, what bothers me the most is the fact that Senator Misau has been off the police force for 7 years.
That's right.
And the police does not have the record of him retiring, presenting papers, his retirement papers and all that he has retired and all that. And not until after 7 years they're coming up to say he is still a police officer and not a senator.
It's symptomatic of what is going on in Nigeria. My feeling, and it's not just a feeling, it's based on how things have happened in Nigeria in the past. If Senator Misau had not stepped on the toes of the IG, nobody would be talking about his not retiring properly, his absconding, you know, his impersonation, etc. Nobody would be talking. Are you saying
invariably that they might have fallen apart? That's what brought about the skeleton exposure.
When you are the IG and somebody is coming up to bring accusations like that against you, 10 billion monthly, that's 120 billion annually.
Huge amount of money.
Huge amount of money. It's not small money. You would want to fight him, and you would want to get whatever you can get, whether it's legitimate or it looks to be legitimate, to taint him. By tainting him, you reduce the impact of the accusations he's throwing against you. But I need to say this, that Nigerians have wisened up. While nobody is saying Senator Misau is a saint, because from what I see and what I hear, he's not. We also know that it is on the police force to disprove to us that the points he has raised against the IG are wrong. So far, they've not done that. So far, they've gone after the whistleblower, not after the accusation. Let's ask ourselves the question, are the police force not guarding institutions across Nigeria? They do.
They do.
They guard all bank premises across Nigeria, embassies, embassy staff, oil companies, multinational companies. They provide security services for them all across the country. Everybody knows that. We move around, we see them in these premises. Are they doing it for free? They will tell you, like Moshood Jimo has been trying to do.
The force,
their public relations officer. And I pity him. In this situation, it's him that I really pity, because his future in the force is at stake. He's been called to defend his boss, and you know, I pity him actually. But he's been dodging the question. Are you people not being paid for these services? He's not been given a straightforward answer. The answer again that everybody knows is yes. They are being paid for it. The Nigerian police is being paid for these services that they provide. Now, if they are being paid for the services, for a moment, let's not talk about whether it's legitimate or not for them to be paid for those services. Which accounts are such payments going into? From my research, I understand that each bank, there's no bank in Nigeria that pays less than 25 million naira monthly for security provided by the police across their branches all over Nigeria, which means other banks pay more. And then embassies, oil companies, etc., etc. Now, which account or accounts are those monies going into? That's a question that the police force would have to answer. We would not turn our eyes away from those questions simply because the Senator Issa, is not a saint. They need to answer this. And if we know the accounts they are going into, are they proper institutional accounts? By that I mean, they could be institutional accounts, but are they accounts that are properly owned by the police force? Are there institutional statutes in place for such monies that come in that will prevent the top echelon of the police force from personalizing the money?
That's right.
Who controls the money? Is it the Police Service Commission or the IG? Of course, the IG is part of the board of the Police Service Commission.
He's
so whoever
of
controls
the board,
it, he would have a say in it. But, you know, are the accounts that this money go into, are they known to the government, to the federal government treasury? Does the Accountant General of the Federation has any say about it? The central bank, do they know about this? Is it something that the federal government can control so that they know what is coming in and what is going out and how it is used? Are there institutional checks and balances in place to make sure that these monies are not personalized? And if the monies come in, this is what we are going to do about it. The police force is not saying anything about this. As far as I can tell, and the police would have to prove us otherwise, we're not just throwing idle accusations here. The police will have to prove us otherwise. As far as I can tell, there are no institutional structures in place. The accounts to which these monies that the banks and other institutions are paying into are probably not known to the federal government. Probably. Moshood Jimo says the police is not a revenue generating agency. And yet they're generating money from this. Let's not lie to ourselves. They're generating money from this. Now, it could be agreed that the money is not to be put into the accounts of the federal government, like the customs, for instance. Whatever the customs is making, it's put into the federal government account. But there should be structures in place that say, okay, we make money from this. And everybody knows, and it's legal. We make money from this. The money that comes in, this is the way we are going to spend it. So that if the police is spending it according to the laid down statutes or not, we know. As far as I know, I have to be proven wrong. As far as I know, there are no laid down procedures for spending of that money.
That is, if they generate the
money.
If
they generate the money. And they do. There's no if about it, sorry. They do. They generate the money. The money, they're not rendering free services. It's not free.
Aside the allegations of embezzling 10 billion naira monthly, there are other allegations leveled against the IG by Senator Misau, talking about posting police commissioners to juicy state, per se. So one will begin to wonder, what is juicy state in Nigeria?
Again, that's a Nigerian factor. We know. Jacob, Yetunde, we are all Nigerians. We know these things happen. A lot of times, and I am not saying that particularly in this case it's happening, or that as far as the Inspector General of Police is concerned, that he's been personalizing these monies. But what I'm saying is that the money that the police is generating from these security services that they provide for these institutions should be institutionalized, so that the IG or the top echelon of the police force do not just do whatever they want to do with it. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I know right now, the statutes do not show us clearly what they should do with these monies that they generate. They need cars, they need communication gadgets, etc., etc. There should be a way in which the monies that come in, that this is what you do with it, so that whoever is the IG does that with it. And then when it comes to posting, all across Nigeria, you have to know the boss. Sometimes you have to grease the palm of the boss. It's a common practice in Nigeria. So if they are saying it about the police, it's not just the police. It's all across institutions in Nigeria. If you do not play ball, you could be a senior officer, you're qualified for a position, but you will not be posted to it. By juicy, he means that there are some states that are out of the way. Even if you are posted there as the commissioner of police or some high-ranking police officer, you are probably going to live on your salary, and that's all. There are other states like Lagos, Rivers, etc., where you have a lot of international companies, firms, multinational companies and oil companies, etc., then you can make a lot of money from the security services that they provide. Those are the juicy states. And it's a fact. These things do happen because they happen all across Nigeria. So I don't see the police is overstretching itself, especially through Moshood Jimo, in trying to put up
a defense
against these things. That every ordinary Nigerian, I was talking with a policeman yesterday, an ordinary policeman, and these are the ordinary police people who are posted to banks and oil companies, etc., etc. And when there is an attack, armed robbers attack, these are the people who are in the front line. These are the people who lay down their lives. And he was talking with me yesterday. He was very vehement. He said, how can their bosses be denying these things? Everybody knows these things happen. So it's not a matter of the current IG. This is a standard practice. It's been going on for a long time.
So other IGs too have also, enjoyed the same privilege. If I was saying it's a privilege during their own tenure, but then nobody has risen an eyebrow or nobody has stepped on their toes to reveal
Except
some
now.
of this. Now let's also look at this.
And sorry, let me add, the senator himself benefited from this. He was an ADC to the minister
for
of the Federal Capital for 3 successive ministers, one after the other, 3 of them. And to be an ADC, because he was talking about the IG came to him that they should get lands and all that because he's close to the minister, etc., etc. He benefited from this, he himself. Because it's not normal to be the ADC to one minister, he's gone, the next minister comes in. Where are the issues of promotion? Has he never been promoted to go to the level where he cannot do ADC service anymore all this time? I mean, are there no other people who can do it? He must have done something to make sure he remains there.
And that's the question in the post earlier on, where was the IG, where was the police when this man served it was an ADC to successive ministers, 3 of them. FCT. Wasn't the police aware that he ought to have gone for the cause, so that he could be promoted beyond the rank of being an ADC? The police, of course, knows about it.
Of course, that's what I'm saying. He himself must have done something. And he leveraged on his relationship with these ministers, because 2 of them are senators. He leveraged on it to also get into the Senate. That's why I'm saying both of them are speaking through the 2 sides of their mouth. They're not, there's a lot of, they're slinging mud. Some of the mud contains poison in it. And there's nobody's a saint in this situation. I guess that's the point I want to make. He himself is not a saint. He's benefited from this. And there's no smoke without fire. The fact that they're now bringing out things that he said he voluntarily retired November 2010, ran for the Senate April 2011, didn't get it, ran again in 2015 and eventually won the elections. And then the police is saying that he absconded because he was sent for training. He didn't want to go. And all that, and they didn't do anything about it until now that he's coming out to accuse them that they are bringing up the story. And Moshood Jimo was given a very flimsy excuse. He was asked, did you people not know that he contested for the Senate, that he eventually won the Senate seat, and that he's sitting in the Senate? It's only now that you want to arrest him for absconding. And he gave an explanation. That a very feeble explanation. Intelligent people shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. We're not fools in Nigeria. He said that in the police force he was using Isa Hamma Misau, but in the Senate he sits as Muhammad something. The only difference in the name is the name Muhammad, and Muhammad is actually his name. I have several names, and these are official names. In the public, I use Agoso Huladino Bamei. But everybody knows that my father's name is Anobius. My father also used Tolo officially. So I could use Agoso Anobius Huladino Tolo Bamei. And these are legitimate, these are legal names.
And it still applies to the same person?
It still applies to the same person. And Moshood Jimo is telling us that that's why they couldn't tell that it was him. Haba.
The problem also points to the fact that there are no proper accountability as to who leaves the force, who is dead, who retires, who resign, and whatever it is. That means there are no records of the previous police officers who have left the force and also the ones who are serving. Is this not the problem
It's again is symptomatic of what is happening in Nigeria. There are records, but they are not properly kept. Whether it's in the pensions fund or people who are currently in the civil service, it's very difficult to meet a head of civil service, whether at the local government or at the state government or at the federal level. And at the click of a button, he can tell you how many people we currently have in service, how many will retire this year, or how many have retired last year. The records are there, but they are not neatly, they are not properly kept. If you want to get the record, it's going to take you days to be able to track it down. And therefore, it leaves a lot of loopholes for people with unclean intentions to manipulate it. So somebody can really abscond. His name is still there. He could be collecting his salaries. He's doing something else. Nobody knows because the records are not properly kept and properly followed until something comes up like this one we have now. And then they begin to dig it up and begin to tell us story. It's symptomatic of Nigeria. We have records, we do not keep them well. And therefore, it's difficult to monitor who is doing what, who is where, and what is he or she doing.
All right, Doctor, you had a privilege to talk with an ordinary policeman who deployed at the bank and others. But if huge amount of money, circulate among the HLM of the police, isn't there a disconnection between the police and the rank and file? And what is the impact, in the police force? This we'll get to find out after this time.
Well, join us for more of this discussion right after this break.
Glad to have you join us on Safiya Breakfast Show. On this very segment, we are looking at an ongoing saga between the Nigerian police force and Senator Misau in a very critical and heated debate. Now, our guest is Agoso Bami, who is a public affairs commentator. Now, before the break, Agoso, I brought up to your notice what you said earlier on, that you had a privilege to discuss with a policeman who also vehemently responded to the happenings, in the Nigerian police. However, if such huge amount of money circulate among the HLM of the police force, isn't there a disconnect between the police itself as an institution and the rank and file? So what is the impact on the disposition of the rank and file?
I mean, it creates a disaffection, and it also creates a situation of disloyalty. The ordinary policemen in the street, and I spoke not just to one policeman, I'm interested in what happens in my country.
That's right.
Because I keep saying it over and over, we suffer unnecessarily. We have no reason to suffer. If we do things properly and rightly, Nigeria has enough resources and enough human resource and initiative to provide a standard of living for every one of us that we will all enjoy our lives. But because we're not doing things properly, we suffer a lot. And you have it shown in the police force like you have it in other services in Nigeria. This policeman was lamenting it bitterly. They hear about huge amounts of monies from the banks to the police force, and they hardly get much. Of course, they are given allowances. If you are sent to do work somewhere, you are given allowances. But it's nothing compared to what the officers are getting. So you have a situation where the officers are driving fine cars, living in fine houses. these people would have to return to the police barracks. In the past few years, police barracks have been standardized, you know,
Sure.
and put into good shape. But there was a time when the police barracks in Nigeria was in a serious mess. These people live there, they live with their families, they live with their children, they hardly can provide a future for their children, and yet they look at their officers, you know, living in fine houses in the towns and cities, driving big cars. They can afford to send their wives, you know, abroad, Dubai, other places, you know, to shop. And so there's this, it creates this disaffection. And it leads to a situation of disloyalty where you would need these people to stand up and fight, and they might not be willing to. Because the question is, and we've seen it in the Nigerian army now. We were here during President Jonathan's time in the fight against Boko Haram. Mm-hmm. There were situations where orders were given and soldiers just refused to fight. And the reason they gave was they're not going to sacrifice their lives for nothing.
Yeah.
They just refuse to fight.
Because they have families as well.
They have families to take care of. If they die, they know how their families are going to suffer. Provision is not made, you know, to take care of their families. You pursue and pursue and pursue until you that is pursuing what is supposed to be your right because you lost your husband or you lost your father in the service, in the line of duty, you begin to even feel guilty, like you're disturbing these people.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you are made to feel as if like it's charity. We're doing this, you know, just to help you, and like it's not your right. You know, so it's you have our soldiers dropping their weapons and running away from Boko Haram. It's not that they don't want to fight, but you ask yourself, is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Is it worth it?
While they're in the front line, there are others who are lying in the air conditioners.
What they do, and what they do is important actually. You know, planning and all that, but they're sitting in their office, air conditions and the rest of it, and we're here dying for nothing. So it leads to a situation of disaffection and disloyalty, and it creates a situation where ordinary Nigerians who are daily making huge sacrifices for the country to move forward get so tired of it and become unpatriotic.
Now, if the National Bureau of Statistics is saying on its rank, Nigeria Police before Judiciary, now we have a twist, of course, Judiciary and then followed by Nigerian Police, corruption is staring us in the face. And the police who are supposed to also help in the fight against corruption are the most corrupt. So what are we looking at? What situation are we looking at in the fight against corruption? You
know, yesterday I sat down and I came back from office a bit late yesterday. I entered the house around 7:30. I left office very late. And when I came in, my daughter welcomed me, you know, and offered me water and all that. And I sat down and I looked at my daughter and I began to think, what kind of country will my generation give to her generation? If we cannot do simple things properly, if we cannot deal with our greed and use resources for the reasons for which they are meant, what kind of country are we going to give to our children? This is not a matter of accusation against the police force, that the National Bureau of Statistics is saying that they are the most corrupt, and the police force is putting up a defense. What defense are we putting up? The National Bureau of Statistics have the statistics. They can determine who. It's within their institutional power and capacity to determine who. If it were me, what I would say is, okay, so this is the situation. What are we going to do about it? There's no need to put up a defense about this. Who does not know about police people collecting money in checkpoints? Who doesn't know that? It happens. It's happened to me. It keeps happening. It's happening all over. Soldiers nowadays who before do not collect money from drivers who are passing are also collecting money. Sure. It's all over the place.
So the system is rotten already.
It's a rotten system. Nigeria itself is rotten. It needs to be said. Let's stop denying this and burying our heads in the ground. It's like
in shame.
Not in shame. We're not burying our head in shame. You know the ostrich bird. It's a very big bird. It's the biggest bird actually in nature. when you pursue it, sometimes it lives in desert areas. What it does, it crouches and then it puts its head in the soil.
Thinking it's
Because it's not seeing you, it thinks the danger is not there. Denying these things are not going to help us.
Another critical thing Senator Misau accused the IG is nepotism, you know, that the police force has been a Nupe affair somehow. But if the police force will indulge into nepotism, now what danger does this pose to the institution?
Again, it's symptomatic of what is happening in Nigeria. That I could limit it just to the police force, but we have to talk generally about this. It's a risky matter. If a lawyer can be corrupted, if a judge can be corrupted, if a police officer can be corrupted, and then we ordinary citizens who don't have the capacity to buy justice or to buy security, where are we? Where are we left? We're exposed. We're vulnerable. It's a difficult situation. The police, world over, and in Nigeria, we keep saying it over and over, the police is your friend. That's ideal.
But with this now,
That's
a lot of
what it's
people will
supposed to
say
be.
the police...
The police will provide security for everybody, provide the situation. And the presence, let me say this, the presence of the police force in our streets, our cities, and our towns is actually helping to keep peace.
That's right.
It keeps the criminals at bay, because they do fight criminals who
Sure.
come out openly to attack. But the issues of corruption, it's something else.
And with this development now, a lot of people say police are underfunded. Now, with this now, do we still have to say police are underfunded?
It's not just the police. Almost every
No,
institution.
let's limit it to the Nigerian police because of the trending issue.
The police is underfunded. I'm somebody who believes that the police is underfunded.
But how can they
But
be
you have
underfunded? 120
It
billion
it doesn't mean that the police is not making money. But the money the police is making is under the radar. It's under institutional radar. It has not been institutionalized. And therefore, the top echelon of the force can do whatever they want with that. And they've been doing it for a long time. It's not just now. What I want to say to help in solving this is to institutionalize this. You know, the monies that the police make from providing security services to banks and companies and embassies, etc., should be institutionalized. The Accountant General should have an eye on it. The central bank should have an eye on it. In fact, there should be a federal government account where this money goes in. But it is dedicated to the police. And then there should be a law or whatever, statutes, that states what can be done about it. You know, providing standard housing for the police, providing vehicles for the police force, communication gadgets, taking care of widows and children of policemen who lose their lives in the course of duty. Such monies should be dedicated to that. And now, once it is done, it is going to take care of a lot of the monetary needs of the police force. But because these things are not institutional, even though it's happening, but it's not institutional, it is up to the whims and caprices of those who are at the top.
Now, Doctor, as we wrap up this, let's quickly talk about the fight against corruption headed by President Muhammadu Buhari. He has a lot in his hands already. We only heard that of the judiciary, now the police, of course, customs have their own issue, and other parastatals have the issue of corruption at hand. But then, how difficult would it be to fight corruption if the institutions that are supposed to also help in the fight against corruption are corrupt?
It's a difficult task. Everybody knows, any deep-thinking Nigerian knows that it's not going to be easy to fight corruption. The truth of the matter is there's no country on earth where you don't find corruption. Only that it's very minimal in these developed countries. But in our case, it's just all over the place. So we can reduce corruption to the barest minimum. It's not going to be easy, and it's going to take a long time. You can't do it in one tenure or in one administration. It's going to be a long fight. It becomes easier, number one, if the citizens themselves rise up and fight it. You see a corrupt case, you stand your ground. You're not afraid of being victimized. And if somebody is standing his ground and you are a passerby and you know he's standing his ground for the right thing, you join in with him, whether it's your case or not. Usually when somebody speaks out, and he comes under attack, like Senator Misau is coming under attack right now, and the rest of us sit quietly, then he's going to be torn into shreds.
Sure.
And other people will now become fearful of speaking up. So the ordinary citizens must mobilize themselves, organize themselves, and stand up against corruption. Secondly, the institutions themselves, the ones that fight corruption and the ones that prevent corruption, should be strengthened. If I am a police officer and my salary, my take-home pay cannot take me home, I am a police officer. I don't have a standard home in which I can live, and I look at my mates who are doing other things and they're living well. I am a police officer, and my standard of living is very low because I am a police officer. And I have the chance to make money illegitimately. The needs and the difficulties I have make it much more probable that I will succumb to the temptation.
Okay.
So we need to look at these things.
Thank you, Doctor, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, that has been Dr. Agoso. Of course, he spoke on the ongoing saga between the Nigerian police and Senator Misau. On the issue of corruption, everybody is responsible. Well, we'll take a break now. We'll return with more on Safiya Breakfast Show. Stay with us.